Hey everyone, I'm back. Um, let's just go through comic books. Why not? Well, I've been collecting quite a few for the past couple of months, just for the hell of it. It's not really much of a hobby. It's just well, technically yes, it's a hobby, but yeah, I decided to go and start collecting a few of these, just for the hell of it. I don't really have like a huge library, but you've seen my previous videos back when I was a fetus. I had quite a few in my collection. But why don't we just go through the ones I have and just talk about a couple things and just things about the comic books that I just enjoy and just go through a bunch of them. Of course, I might as well talk about the Disney comics since I'm here. Most notably, the Uncle Scrooge stuff. So, starting in the I think it was the late 40s or early 50s, a cartoonist in the Disney Comics group, Carl Barks, decided to create a character for their Walt Disney in full color comics, Uncle Scrooge. I think it was up on Bear Mountain. And to this day, Uncle Scrooge is one of the most popular comic books in history. I do own a few of the Uncle Scrooge stuff. Let's see, as you may see here, I own issue 273, 279, let's see, 244, and these two here of Uncle Scrooge Adventures, issue 26 and 23. These last two were published by both Gladstone and Marvel, and all these are pretty much just reprints of older stories from Carl Barks. But so what? It's Carl Barks. He's one of the most legendary comic book creators in history. Up there with creators of Superman, Spider-Man, of course Stan Lee, Bob Montano, Archie, etc. But he's always had a different feel when compared to, say, the Disney cartoons of the day. They're much more adventurous. You have more detailed plots, and of course, the most notable thing about it is the use of the artwork on these things. They're just it's memorable. Carl Barks's illustrations here are just beautiful, and these were back in the 40s to the 60s, hell 70s, I bet. And Carl Barks pretty much took hold of everything development. Now, as for the Disney Comics name, well, they pretty much were in the comic scene for years. They started with the newspapers, of course. They would put out their own comics under Dell, Whitman, Gladstone, and later in 1990 they founded their own comic book arm. Although it would sadly close down in 1993, but they would continue to make comic books for their Disney Adventure magazine, which lasted until 2007. How one of the most notable things that Barks would do is to not color Donald Duck's shirt blue. I guess to save on color, but that I pretty much knew Donald Duck, not just for his blue shirt, but also for his black shirt, since I grew up a bit reading these comic books. In fact, one of the first Disney comics was one of the Donald Duck Adventures comics, I believe. Of course, these comics have introduced a bunch of many recognizable characters. Again, Scrooge McDuck, who will later appear in the cartoons. Of course, Mickey's Christmas Carol, DuckTales, and of course the Beagle Boys, as well as inter- introducing the Ink. Was it the Ink? Oh, I forgot his name. What is his name actually? Yeah, here we go. The Blot. Yeah, probably one of the most notable things Carl Barks would create. Was it actually created by Carl Barks? Let me look in the credits. Uncle Scrooge and Financial Fable. No, actually, it doesn't say any of the writers who did it, sadly, but I pretty much only really knew about Carl Barks and his work. I know there is another artist dedicated to those adventure stories starring Mickey and Goofy, but the one who created a bot. I believe he was once going to be the villain for Epic Mickey, where he would team up with Oswald, but I believe that got removed. Also, take notice of Mickey's fully white face. He's not like peach colored as you would expect him in the earlier days. Again, to save on coloring. But again, I'm pretty much used to it. Oh yes, he also introduced Gyro Gearloose to the series, who will later appear in DuckTales in his first animated role. In many of these covers, of course the ones here distributed by Marvel and Gladstone, Let me see. Front cover by Mel Crawford. This one was done by Mel Crawford. This one here was done by Carl Barks. Probably one of my personal favorite color covers that I've seen in comic books. He does it wonderfully. If my camera can function, there we go. Disney Comics, while they did not last for that long, only for 3 years, they did put out a bunch of series based off many of their properties. Of course, Uncle Scrooge, Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, their random comics and stories releases, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, Tailspin, movie adaptations, and even Roger Rabbit. Yeah, it had like two series. There is the standard release Roger Rabbit, as well as Roger Rabbit's Toontown. I haven't read this one yet. Some of these I actually just got today, so bear with me. I always found how I mean, if you remember Who Framed Roger Rabbit, it's a mix between live action and animated characters. Today, Jessica Rabbit, a somewhat, overdone, sexy, femme fatale, next to this realistic ass character who was named Rick. I believe he didn't have any Valiant here, or they did. I haven't read the Roger Rabbit comics. I will admit, I this is the second issue that came out of it. Oh, see, here we go. Goofy Adventures, DuckTales, again, Roger Rabbit, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. They put out quite a bit of these. And of course, they put out the supersized collection editions. Of course, now Disney comics are still around, of course, based on many of their properties. I remember the Incredibles comics from Boom Studios. Um, and of course, IDW now puts out the Disney comics. So you cannot deny that Disney comics are pretty much some of the most influential of its time. And as I said with the feature film adaptations, the only one I have here is The Jungle Book. This version of the book was released back in around the same time the movie came out, 1967. This is a reprint from the year 1990, which I assumed helped coincide with the release of its last theatrical run, which was the same year. And yeah, it's a pretty much a, of course, realistic out or not realistic, a near close adaptation of the original, adaptation. This is a 64-page comic. Of course, this was at the time pretty typical. I believe there was comics that go up to 96, and they were like, what, 50 cents? Those ones were pretty sick. Hell, on the back here, this is the cover art for that theatrical release in 1990. So this must have been made for the help with that theatrical run. But, Disney was not just the only one who did comics. I mean, for God's sake, Disney is one of the most reputable brands of all time, even barring many of their mistakes, really. But really, if I ever want to read a comic book, I just stick with Archie. Yeah, why not? Started in 1941. Archie has been around here for years. Some of the most easiest to find comic books around. Seriously, most of the comics I have here are Archie related, and to this day, I still read them. I've been reading them since 2008, and to this day, I still have a lot of fun with these. This is issue 409. Of course, I'm never going to get the first issue. I mean, those things are expensive. One of my favorite things to do with comic books is to look at the ads. Some of these ads back in the day were truly a sight. Like this one here for an ad for Hook, the Robin Williams movie. What there's like let's see, there's Stan Goldberg, Dan Parent, who still I believe is a part of the Archie crew, Billy Sheeta, Pam Uckland, Will, let's see, Bob Smith, again, Dave Manick, Armand Winnie, David Grossman, let me see, Dana Necrosis, many others. Of course, John Workman, I believe, pretty much does most of the lettering back in the late 2000s, early 2010s of the Archie comics. What I like about the Archie comics is how it's simple, but it works. I mean, it's Archie. I mean, what are you supposed to do? They're in a realistic world. Hell, to this day, the time when he got shot is still one of the craziest of my times. And there was this like what is like multi-directional or dimensional story where he either marries Veronica or Betty. That's crazy. But yeah, Archie to this day is one of the most well-known comic books. Like to this day, they still print stories. They put out other ones like horror and more adult ones. Their digests are still going well. I mean, $10 for a digest, sure, that's a bit much, but it works. I feel like they make most of that revenue from that. Now that I realize it. Oh yeah, I remember these cash prizes. Get cash rewards. You can get yourself a freaking telescope. Great. I don't know how those things even worked. Like you insert cash and see if you want it. I don't know. That's just weird. Did you know that they put out a Ninja Turtles comic? Yeah, they did, starting in 1989, I believe. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures, which ran for like what 72 issues. This is issue 3 and issue 1 of the Mighty Mutant Animals miniseries. I believe they were originally created for the comic. Um, I haven't read much of these art of the Archie comic turtles. I did read a lot of the IDW Ninja Turtles. I believe they're still going strong. The most notable thing about these is the illustrator, Chris Allen, I believe is the name. No, Ken McCroney. I love his artwork done for these issues. It's very cartoony, as it is somewhat based off of the cartoon, but it's simple but effective. I wouldn't be surprised if he worked on the show. But like I said with Chris Allen, he worked on the series too, especially with the later issues, close to the end. These are definitely more simpler comics. Well, it might I mean there's barely any ads in these things, which is kind of bizarre. Actually, oh here we go. Here's some of the subscriptions here, like this one here for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles meets Archie with the two cover like the two-part cover that goes off to the back. That was really cool. So yeah, um, you guys know Marvel, right? One of the most successful comic book creators of all time. Being bought out by Disney in the late 2000s. Well, their entertainment branch, I should say. And they're still doing exceptionally well. And yeah, mostly, I think they use most of their money dedicated to the movies. Like, come on, the Marvels just came out, and the cat was in the premiere. Like, you can't make this crap up. But while they were still a part of the comics, they made a bunch based off some cartoons, as you may remember. Some of the most notable ones for me were the ones where they made for Nickelodeon shows. This here is the first issue of Rocko's Modern Life that came out in 1994. It didn't run that long, sadly, as it only ran for I think it was 7 to 8 issues. But I was able to find this thing for like $2. I was very happy to find it. It's a great cover. It's really fun. It definitely keeps the spirit of the cartoon, and I'm a big fan of the series. Rocko's Modern Life, definitely one of my favorite Nicktoons. Funny considering it's what the fourth cartoon that Nicktoons would ever produce. And speaking of which, I think Marvel has some of my favorite ads, especially around this time in the '90s, where they put out the X-Men Chef, like what Chef Boyardee sweepstakes. It would have been cool if they brought back those dinosaur ones. That would have been neat. I'm absolutely impressed of how well this looks. Like Rocko's Modern Life can be pretty crazy with some of its looks. Like there's a lot of eye gouging in that series, which is nuts. This page in particular is crazy. Definitely gives me a what Milton Knight feel. Did anyone ever notice that they always just put a plaster Spider-Man in the background? What is it supposed to be like a poster or something? But like I said, the series did not do so well, as again it only ran for what again 8 issues or 7, and add for the Beavis and Butthead card set. And this is one of the most like the one ad I see everywhere in Marvel back then. The Crunch and Much trading card products. Well, basically you find a Marvel trading card inside a package of Crunch and Munch. Apparently, Lord knows they don't do that anymore. But regardless, well, really, when I think of Nickelodeon and Marvel, I think of the Ren and Stimpy comics. debuting around 1992. It ran for about 44 issues until 1996. Here's issue 20 of which is an interview between Muddy Mudskipper after an incident done by Stimpy where he warps a hairball onto Muddy Mudskipper. Ren takes over the show, got it canceled, and now they're out in the streets. The most notable thing you'll know about the comic book is its art style early on, where it was done by Mike Zella, or Mike Cazella. I like these designs, although you can definitely tell this is not how Ren and Stimpy are supposed to look. I still love his work here, though. He does a wonderful job. Later issues, especially when the time hits the late 30s, early 40 issues, it definitely gets crazier. Because around that time, they later put it under the Marvel Absurd brand. You know, comics dedicated to the weird and the crazy. This and the other issue I have here, issue 15. I got these both in a Las Vegas trip 3 years ago. Or was it 4 years ago? I kind of lost count. But you know, this is a really neat releases, and it has a mail, of course, dedicated to fan mail. Ask Doctor Stupid, pretty smart, I'd say. Again with that crunching much at, oh lord. But yeah, as I said, they came out 44 issues, a few specials. I believe on a mini comic once, but one of the most notable things is with this issue here because it has an ad for Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition for the Genesis. This is like the only version of Street Fighter 2 I would play. I'm not gonna lie. It has an ad for the initial VHS releases from Nick from Sony Wonder. Long before this was back around when Nickelodeon was still part of Viacom, and that was like a year before. Well, this came out in 1994. This issue, because by this time Viacom was about to buy up Paramount, and of course by 1996 Paramount would release Nickelodeon home video releases under their name, as you may know. But regardless, these are really neat. This is the earliest issue of the series, issue 8, that I own. Of course, um, riffing on the Maltese Falcon, that one NGM movie, I believe. I love the cover here. Definitely well done. As you may see beforehand, there was no Nickelodeon logo on these things. I believe they started around issue 15, at least as far as I'm aware. Now, Marvel, I definitely know Marvel for one thing. They're supersized comics. Of course, they base again comics based off movies and TV shows. Here's another recent one I've gotten. This one's definitely made towards for younger folk. The comic book adaptation of An American Tale, Fievel Goes West, based off the movie of the same name from Amblin, Amblimation, and Universal Pictures, a sequel, massive quotes, to the original film. Um, I'm not really a fan of how this is colored. It looks simple. This came out in 1991 again, around the same time this came out alongside the movie. I don't know, just the way it's colored sometimes. Like, look at this image of Feifel, and then look at him down here. That just doesn't look right. Of course, no disrespect to the original artist. They did the best they could with these, with this adaptation. In fact, who did? Let's see. Gasper. I should give that name to myself as a nickname. I mean, George Walden did pretty good with the artwork. It's just the coloring just looks a little weird. Again, this is back again. Printing was somewhat weirder. And even then, like, I haven't read much of it, but just now, it kind of looks like a. It seems to be just a collection of issues just plastered together and just put out as a big book. And it's not even a big book. It's like what 64 pages, I believe. Also, I'm not really a fan of the outer cover for the front and the back. I just don't like that they made it thicker because I'm trying to read it and like it might crease it or bend it. I'm just not a fan. I mean, this is made for kids, so for what they did, they tried. Also, again, a little fun fact: the original movie, the dog cowboy character Wiley Burp, yes, that's his name. He was voiced by Jimmy Stewart, and this was his last performance in his in a project before he passed away. Hell, the last line he made for the movie, Five Goes West, is really touching. Let's see this one here. I think you let's see. I think you'll find you're the hero all kind of folks will be looking for in many days to come. And this comic was kind of made more towards reading with friends, especially when you're trying to learn to read. It does have this nice picture of Fievel from the movie. In fact, I like the fact that it did use the cover from the poster. Like you can definitely tell this is straight from the poster without the credits, which is funny. There is this other comic I have, The Next Mutants, an 80-page summer special. I guess this is based off another comic, but I'm not going to go through this. But it has some sick artwork, though. Definitely not props for that. Here are some of my favorite finds. Alf. Yeah, Marvel made an Alf comic book. These are the annual comics. The series ran for like 53 issues, I believe. Now, one of the main reasons I read these is because two collaborators worked on this, Michael Gallagher and Dave Manick, who will later on work on the Archie comics for Sonic the Hedgehog. And you can definitely tell this is Dave Manick's style. It's more angular, and it's very simple. Of course, he will later expand on his work, of course, in the Archie works comics. But yeah, this is a 64-page comic book based off the comedy series Alf. I believe it started back in 1988, the comic book series, or was it 1987? I'm probably wrong on that. Hell, the other issue I have here, Alf turns invisible for God's sake, which is kind of funny. But yeah, 175 for a 64-page comic book. I mean, that alone is kind of crazy. But of course, one of the main leaders of the comic book world is, of course, DC. I don't have much of DC. Of course, mad respect to their work Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Meg. I only own two comics of DC. The first one here is Superman Adventures Annual. This was published in 1997, based off the Adventures of Superman animated series from Warner Brothers. It's a really neat release. And then we have the first of the 3-issue miniseries of Bugs Bunny. Of course, later in 1994, they will put out a Looney Tunes comic book, which is still going on to this day, which is great. In fact, let's go through this one first. I believe this was made to coincide with the release of Bugs Bunny's 50th anniversary campaign. As again, this came out in 1990. You can definitely tell considering how old this looks. Like the coloring looks a little faded. The pages are yellowed. But this artwork done by let's see who done the artwork here. Chuck Fiala. He definitely does a wonderful job here. Many of this I can consider near official. Like he does a wonderful job with these poses. Like this picture of Elmer Fudd. That's great. That's legit wonderful. But yeah, this was back when Ash just looked so faded. Like good lord. Oh yeah, let me tell you this. So the old hag witch. I forgot her name. Here's this one panel. She has regular skin. And over here it goes back to her green skin. Definitely a coloring error in my place. This is also lettered by John Workman, who will again later on work on Archie with their lettering. I always knew him because of his large letter work, and I will admit I wasn't really a fan of his work until now. But I'm still not really a fan of his lettering, but it's all good. I will always stick with I forgot his name, but he worked with Archie as well. But even then, it's either that one guy I forgot his name or Bill Yoshida. Again, I haven't touched this one yet, but or read this one. This one again came out in 1997, so it has more crazier ads in here, as printing got a little more modern. Hell, in the back here contains some ads for some upcoming Hanna Barbera and Cartoon Network comics. Scooby Doo, the Flintstones and the Jetsons has an ad for seeing it in 3D. Let me see. Especially marked boxes of Oscar Mayer Lunchables, Fun Pack and Post Sugar Crisps, etc. Uh, it comes with a pair of 3D glasses, and it will show cartoons in 3D. I don't know how the hell that works. Hercules and Xena. Oh yeah, this was based. I believe this was based off the live action show Arnold Schwarzenegger. I believe. Journey of the Journey of the Brave. I believe. I don't know. I haven't seen that show, if at all. So regardless. Well, that was fun. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this little video I've made about just going through comic books and just relaxing. Until then, I hope I'll see you guys in the next update or video in general. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And until then, I'll see you next time. Toodles.